collected the
manuscript,
DNA.
Same manuscript.
Same manuscript, okay.
But he used a couple of tablets.
So I'm sorry, I'm filming now, so let's just start over.
Okay, so this is the same manuscript, but a
Yeah,
different
it's the same
tablet.
manuscript. I don't know if it's the first or the last, but at any rate, it's the other half, the other part, or third, or whatever.
A handwritten manuscript by William Thadeus Phillips.
Yeah, it's again from Jim Kennedy, Prospector.
Oh my goodness. So Butch Cassidy wrote short stories.
Well, Phillips did.
Phillips, William Thaddeus Phillips wrote short stories.
Yeah. Well, they're all about Western figures, bad men mostly, and good men, I guess.
Well, what if he just would have started out writing stories instead of robbing for 10 years?
Well, he was making them for a lot of years, and then he decided, I guess, to settle down and use some of it to write things. So.
This is just so much fun. I had no idea you had those, Brent. You could publish those.
Yeah, they're fun things. I'm glad to see them being used. I think it's great. They've just kind of been buried in safe deposit boxes and things. So.
Is it kind of like you're just now comfortable coming out that you own these, or?
No, I've always wanted to try to share things, but who do you share them with? So it's nice to see somebody that knows what they're doing, looking at them.
Yeah, because now we've got the DNA for them, and then these are never before heard stories.
Well, I know if there's any DNA on those Butch Cassidy letters, that'd be wonderful. They're pretty old.
Yeah.
And if there's some on this of Phillips, we've got DNA of both of them then. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Do you know how much more DNA you've got than I had anticipated? This is a lot.
I don't know what I got, but she's going to find out. Yeah.
It's a frustrating thing with DNA. You never know until the end whether you actually
got some or not.
Here you're swabbing and swabbing and swabbing and.
May just be Brent Ashworth DNA. I don't know.
Well, on the documentary, they'll know we had a good time.
Yeah, we had a blast.
Oh my gosh. And so you've read all these stories.
No, I haven't.
You haven't read them?
I haven't been through these at all. I just pulled these. I've been through the Bandit and Invincible, and Larry just went off a copy that we made of he didn't go off the original in writing his book. Fascinating book, but he only made like 300 copies of it, and there's only like 100 of them there.
And tell me the history of the Bandit Invincible, because I've got a 60-page copy from the Historical Society.
Yeah, well, those would be about half the size of these. This is the original.
That then what year was it that you?
Well, I got it in 2010. That's when I got it, but it was written back in the 30s, and we know when he died in 37 that he'd already been trying to. Phillips had been trying to get magazines, mostly Sunset Magazine and others, that he attempted to get them to publish his manuscript, The Bandit Invincible. He writes at the beginning page, he says, "This story is based entirely upon facts. All of the holdups herein described were actually perpetrated by Cassidy during the years of his life of banditry in both North and South America. Several of the minor holdups have been omitted, as space in a single volume will not permit chronicling all the episodes of his strenuous life as a bandit." So that's the title page.
I'm sorry. His strenuous life as a bandit.
So if that's not Cassidy, I don't know.
I don't know what is.
Yeah. What is?
And we can have his writing style computer analyzed. We can have Butch Cassidy letters.
Well, I think, there's some
computer analyzed.
here. Let me read you the first page. This is also before the forward. "This book is dedicated to the old settler who built the nest among the foothills and broad valleys of central Wyoming during the years between 1885 and 1895, many of whom forfeited their lives or their liberty in their fight for settlers' rights as citizens of the United States of America against the old-time cattle baron." And he's got this sort of prose. "Back to old Wyoming where I roamed in days of yore, searching for the faces of my pals of long ago. Gone are they forever, from the mountains and the dells, where again I'll see him amidst the hills I love so well. And then he's got his forward after that and the rest of the book.
This fellow could write, couldn't he?
Yeah, well, he could write.
That's brilliant.
Well, he was really, Butch, if you know his real life, as we do, he was more of a lover than a fighter. He didn't kill anybody that we know of, although he had gang members that did. Couldn't say that about Sundance.
Right.
Yeah. And he was often thought of as a more modern Robin Hood, you know.
Yeah.
Well, he
he
was
did
also
Even-
more intellectual than a lot of the wild bunch.
Yeah, he was.
Flat-nosed Curry was not the sharpest stick in the bunch.
No, there were a lot of news cars, were a few of them weren't real bright.
Yeah.
But Butch was an organizer. I mean, when you think of it was the biggest outlaw gang in the history of American West. It was at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
At one time they had 400 riders. At one time they, the Dalton gang tried to break all the records of the James gang by knocking over 2 banks in Coffeyville, Kansas, the same time. We'll knock over 2 banks. Outdo and they got blown to bits. They got caught. Of course, so did the James gang when they did their last one at Northfield, Minnesota. Yeah. They were trying to outbetter that. In fact, one little ironic story, my grandmother, the lady I mentioned to you that inspired to collect me, she was actually approached by Emma Dalton on a train, back in her youth.
Oh my word.
Yeah, he hit on her.
Oh.
Use our terminology. So there is a little connection with the Daltons here too.
There you
briefly.
go.
But I think she was only like 14 at the time. She was really young.
Pretty young.
But at any rate, the Butch Cassidy's gang, they knocked over 4 trains and a bank on one weekend.
I bet.
I mean, it took a real organizer.
Well, it's estimated.
He was a great organizer.
He was, and he got away with it.
And he got away with it. At least he got down to. Eventually, he had to go to South America after one of those weekends. Well, it was the one when they blew up that train to pieces. So,
was it the Wilcox robbery?
Too much dynamite on that book.
Yeah. That's why we love the movie.
Smithereens. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bills flying everywhere. All the passengers trying to get what they could. Yeah, he was a real character, but he was mostly an artist in what he did. And they had one thing I got a kick out of was they had Doug Preston, who was their full-time attorney.
Oh.
I imagine, I was in-house attorney for 30-some years.
Be on retainer, probably.
Yeah, Doug Preston was out of Rawlins, Wyoming. Years ago, I picked up some big bank books, and they're the biggest books I've got. They're big leather ledgers, but they're this thick.
Oh, wow.
And I got them hoping that I'd find Doug Preston. I found his wife's name. Everything was listed in his wife's name.
See, he was a smart attorney.
Yeah, he's the one that the governors of 4 states sent to try to get Butch to turn himself in. And they missed each other. And there was a note left that basically said, "Damn you, Preston, you didn't show up when you were supposed to, and you and the UP tell them to go to hell."
I remember that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I owned that note for a long time, but that ended up in a trade with
You
with,
actually
Craig
had
Fouts'
that.
collector that I got the Butch letters. I wanted the Butch letters worse from. There was just a little note of Butch's, not signed, but still it was in his writing.
Right.
And that was
That would have been a cool
That came
document
from
to
the
have.
Utah State Historical Society. In fact, it was Hoffman that traded them out of that, and I got it from Mark. So these things have kind of a, we're going to talk about mixed DNA.
Incestuous
Yeah,
relationship.
incestuous relationships.
I think we got the good DNA here.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
At any rate, this is